A very good afternoon to all, and welcome to Exneco's webinar series. Our topic for the day is the future of water, sustainable solutions for a thirsty planet. Water is a precious resource that sustains our planet and supports all forms of life. Increasing water scarcity and a growing demand for fresh water is upsetting Earth's delicate balance. It is critical for each. It is critical for each of us to recognize the importance of conserving water in our everyday lives and actively seek sustainable solutions to cut our water waste for the greater good. For adopting simple yet impactful practices, we can preserve the invaluable resource and build a more sustainable future for generations to come. Water scarcity affects numerous regions worldwide, with consequences ranging from reduced access to clean drinking water to entire compromised ecosystems. In communities where clean water is scarce, the task of seeking out drinking water, often falls on the youngest family members. They bear the burden of walking miles each day to fetch clean water from streams and ponds. Our esteemed speakers of the day are Ms. Shikha Gupta, Program Manager Arthayan, Mr. Gautam Surana, Founder Director of Eco 365, Mr. Pushparaj Dalal, Senior VP Sulabh International. We welcome you all and honored by your presence for the webinar. My first question goes to Madam Shikhita. Please enlighten us um, on the fact that how thirsty our planet is.
First of all, hi Shrestha. I would like to thank you for bringing all of us here on this platform so that we can share our thoughts and maybe talk about, the essence and the future of water. If you ask me honestly, how thirsty is our planet? I mean, incredibly. Our planet is incredibly thirsty and it is supposed to grow only. So, with global water demand, it's expected to rise around 40% by 2030, as per the estimates. So, I see that we are already in a crisis, but the crisis will be bigger in the future. And it will not only affect the communities, it will also affect all the ecosystems which are present in the nature. And today, as we see, over 2 billion people lack the access to safe drinking water. And with climate change even exaggerating that issue, so I feel the thirst is going to be real and it's going to be really serious. And the reality is that water is not just a resource, it's the foundation of life. Everything we see around us is being nurtured by water, whether it be our agriculture, the food on our plate, industry, even economies. So yet we sort of continue to overuse and pollute it at unsustainable rate, which is not fair. But there's a good news. The good news is that sustainable solutions do exist. And coming from a climate innovation background, I feel that better water conservation technique and management practices, and with startups taking over those issues, I feel that technologies which have innovation as a foundation can sort of solve the problem. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So that was a very beautiful start to the session, and we got very good information about the fact that there are sustainable ways of preserving water, and that can be looked into. And also the fact that the requirement for drinking water will go up by 40% by 2030 is really alarming, and we need to look at this seriously. And now my next question goes to Mr. Gautam Surana. What are the causes of drinking water shortages in different parts of India?
Well, Srista, I'm not a drinking water expert, but still, I would like to answer this from my experiences whatever I've understood from my visits to different places. Uh, One of the main reasons for drinking water shortage is because of the quality of the water, what is present, everywhere. Uh, Places do have water, but they're not suitable for drinking, or they have some contamination. Okay, and majority of the places where the water is, let's say I'm coming from Assam, okay, and I lived there, and what I see, even though we're taking the water from the tube well or somewhere, the water quality is not so good. Okay, they're not suitable. So the shortage is actually uh, the infrastructure shortage, I would say. Okay, drinking water shortage is basically an infrastructure shortage where you are not adequately storing the water properly. At the same time, you're not distributing it, or you're not filtering it, or you're not treating it. So if we solve that problem, I feel the waters, it requires a very decentralized way of management. This is my understanding again. Uh, I leave that to experts. I'm sure been
Yes.
explored more better than me. I'm someone who's into an expert in water efficiency, and I normally take care of all the water which comes to your house, not just drinking water.
Sir, but you really made a very valid point that water is not being stored correctly, properly, and it is infrastructure problem is there, which is something which needs to be looked into. We also have with us our knowledge cohort member, Mr. Raja Mohanty, and we would also like to know from his side, because he's a water expert as well, what he thinks about it.
I don't think, Shrestha, I'm really a water expert. Yeah, I think we are at a point in time where, as Gautam did mention, that it is not just drinking water which is at a risk level. It is that entire whole gamut of usage of water, be it for construction or any way. So I think that is a serious challenge. And what Gautam very pinpointedly said, the decentralization is what will get us through into different areas. And I believe that's one of the major parts out of that.
Wonderful, sir.
So
Yes.
I would firmly agree with Gautam that yes, decentralization is key.
True, sir. So now my next question goes to Mr. Pushparaj Dalal. What solutions are available for drinking water crisis in India?
See, I think that before we jump to the solutions, we need to understand the problem slightly more. Okay, what is the problem? And why is the world talking about water lately? And how significant is this problem in India? So, if we go by what the World Bank defines, 1,000 cubic liters per capita is something which is called water shortage, scarcity. And 1,000 to 1,700 per capita cubic liters of water is what is called water stress. And above 1,700 is sufficient water per capita. So India currently falls in the water stress zone. There are countries in the world which are already water scarce, which would include countries from the Middle East like Bahrain, Qatar, Lebanon. But India, as per 2021, India was at 1,500 cubic liters per capita. And as per 25, it has come down to 1,350 cubic liters per capita. And by 2050, we would be in the water shortage category if things go on as is. So now water, there are two issues with water. One is scarcity and one is contamination. Scarcity is a global challenge. We'll come to scarcity. Contamination, as per Niti Aayog, even now 75% of Indian households lack access to safe drinking water. And nearly 200,000, 2 lakh deaths happen every year in India because of lack of access to safe drinking water. which is a pretty easy thing to sort because there are technologies available which can treat water and make it safe. Scarcity is a larger problem. For scarcity, we need to kind of go into the whole water cycle. So the water is constant in the world, in the, in the entire atmosphere.
Yes.
So why is the shortage coming up? I mean, if it's constant, so there's enough. There should be enough water. If the water is not depleting, so
Yeah.
the biggest challenge. Why is it happening? Well, basic water cycle talks about evaporation, condensation, precipitation. So your evaporation happens from largely from the sea. The Earth's surface is 70% oceans and seas. So 30% is land. So largest evaporation happens at sea. And then you have evaporation happening at land, which includes evaporation from water, surface water, which is ponds, lakes, reservoirs built by human beings, evaporation that happens through vegetation. So evaporation happens, goes into condensation, and then there's a precipitation. When it precipitates, it comes back to us, comes back to land. The challenge is now with earlier surface. So let me explain something else also. What is safe drinking water? Anything that is 1000 TDS or less than 1000 TDS is considered as safe. What are the sources of fresh water? There is groundwater and there is surface water. Now, normal conditions, both of these are supposed to be safe drinking sources of water, fresh water. But because of agricultural practices and industrial waste, groundwater has become highly contaminated. And because of leakages into surface water has also become very contaminated. So, contamination is something which can be sorted through infrastructure, whether it's groundwater or surface water. There are technologies available. We at Sulabh, we are into water. We do a lot of water treatment plants. We deal with contamination in a lot of states. So contamination can be sorted, is what my take is. But more importantly, we need to kind of work towards the scarcity part. How to stop the world from going from a sufficient water supply to a water stress, and from a water stress to shortage of water. Biggest reason which I see is our need or greed for consumer products. So it is just for random fact that I'm sharing with you is that a jeans that we wear takes around 80 liters of water to make it. So fast fashion is the biggest culprit when we say why we are going into shortage of water in different areas. Construction is another one. So this water does not evaporate back. This water is gone once it is utilized. Construction, fast fashion, there are other areas as well. So I'll get into, if you're asking me solutions, the most important solution is working towards a circular economy, even for water. So usually we talk about circular economy in waste management. Water waste management is also directly connected to this. We have to reduce use of water. If how will we reduce? Is basic public awareness about small things that we do in our daily usage. So when you take a shower, I'm just asking you guys, just take a guess how much of water is used for a shower of 5 minutes. Let's take it as a quiz question. You can take a guess, wild guess.
70 to 80 liters.
Yeah, correct. You're approximately there. Approximately 90, 75 to 90 liters of water for 5 minutes of shower. So if you are in the shower for 10 minutes, if you double that time, it would be 150 liters to 200 liters of water is wasted. Every time you use the toilet flush, again, 5 liters of water is gone. Fresh water is gone.
This is 15
So,
liters.
sorry, I'm
It
saying
is
a very conservative estimate is 5 liters at least, and that is not only for using it for fecal sludge. Even if you are passing urine and you put the flush, you've drained away 5 liters of water. So, and we see these ads. Recently, there's an ad by Kohler which I saw 2 days back, where this lady's had a stressful day and she gets into the shower and they're selling showers. And there are 5 showers in her toilet, one from the top, two from the side, and two from here. And they're talking about the beauty of a shower after a hectic day. So these, even for washing clothes, you know, one wash of say 10 to 12 clothes takes about 75 liters of water. So these are very basic, common things that people don't know about, or if they know about, they believe that there's a free supply and an endless supply of water. So a huge awareness campaign around this is something that we need to do. And until people change their behavior, their consumer behavior, their personal behavior, this shortage of water can't be stopped. Then we are walking into it. And nobody else is responsible. It's easy to say that government could do this and government could do this. Water is basically consumed by us human beings. Government has come up with schemes. Government has come up with there's Jal Shakti Abhiyan, which talks about rejuvenating groundwater and blah blah blah. And there is Har Ghar Jal, where they're talking about uh, taking piped water to every household. But again, that would still have the challenge which we are facing right now, is even piped water is contaminated. So again, you would need to treat it. Otherwise, you are drinking contaminated water, which will lead to disease and death. So the challenge is multifold. At the core of this challenge is us. It's not only the government or fixing infrastructure needs, it's fixing the use. Fixing the use through a circular economy approach, where we reduce, where we reuse, and where we recycle. Some of the key things that we could immediately do is, one is something called metering and measuring water intake, input and output in industries. In terms of regulations, I'm talking about the actions that the government can take. Then there is optimizing of cooling towers. Cooling towers, example, industrial scale is different, but in our homes we understand the use of air conditioning is you know, a simple thing. Re- Reinventing bathroom fixtures or reinventing the whole toilet mechanism, which is not very far away. Which, if I'm sure with the kind of technology advancement that's happening, if we move into the right direction, a lot of water can be circulated within the toilet system, where water which is used for bathing could be reused for washing and could be further reused for flushing. But these technologies are slightly far away. We don't know how soon, or but invention, need is the invention of mother of invention. So now we know, and we are kind of aware that sooner or later we need to do all this. So I'm sure the technologies will come up. Rainwater harvesting is something which is very common though, but still not done at a large scale. You will see projects here and there. When rain is falling, it does not differentiate that whether it will fall here or fall there. It falls everywhere. So everybody needs to kind of get into action mode of how rainwater harvesting can be done at household level, at industrial level, at large municipal levels. So it is not at one level will sort the problem. Rainwater harvesting has to become a part of our habit. Then we talk about groundwater recharge. I hope I'm not running over my time.
No, no, not at all, sir. Not at all.
Just pointed that I might be
Yeah.
talking too much. So
Yeah.
so groundwater recharge is something. Now groundwater, what has happened because of agricultural practices, use of fertilizers, groundwater has become contaminated, especially in the Harit Kranti areas like Punjab, Haryana, Western UP. And you see a lot of cancer cases coming from these places. Actually, 38% of the country's cancer burden comes from this belt, and which is largely because of groundwater contamination and depletion in water tables. So, again, a big focus is required in terms of groundwater recharge and groundwater treatment. Then the use of grey water, which I talked about in toilets, that
Yes.
grey water can
Yes.
be reused. In agriculture, you
Perfect.
can adopt practices like drip irrigation, which has come up. A lot of people are doing it, but
Yes.
because technology is expensive and an average farmer cannot afford it, so we have to bring in more cost efficiency into these systems or these technologies so that a regular 2 acre farmer can also use drip irrigation. Larger farmers are already starting to use it, but it is required not for larger farmers, it's required for all farmers.
Yes.
And then there is desalination, which can also be especially in states like Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, which are bordering the sea, which have huge coastlines. Desalination projects is something where the government needs to step in and set up desalination plants. So these are some of the basic things that we can do to deal with the crisis. But again, we have to look at it from both the points. One is the scarcity part, and one is the contamination part. Now, basic access to safe drinking water is a basic human right, and that is where it becomes the responsibility of the government also to ensure that at least people have access to safe drinking water. Drinking water should be safe. So for that, just providing piped water, even the government policy says they will provide piped water. They are not specifying that the piped water will be contamination free. In
True.
Delhi, recently we have seen that the piped water that comes into the tap is highly contaminated in the capital city. So you can imagine what would be happening in other places. Wherever we are setting up water treatment plants, it is piped water which is contaminated. Groundwater is anyways contaminated. The only source of supply is either groundwater or surface water. Your groundwater is largely contaminated, so is your surface water. So contamination of water and scarcity of water are two challenges. And I think it should be a two-pronged approach. Yeah, that's
That
what
was
my take.
great input, sir. Yeah, that was great input, sir. In fact, being responsible and creating awareness about water scarcity, water use, and using it in that would lead to, which would lead to proper water management is actually the key for the future. And especially circular economy and water is something which we really need to look into. So those were great insights, sir. Now, my next question, as you also pointed out, to access to drinking water as a human right, I think that is my question, which goes to Madam Shikita Gupta. Kindly enlighten us on the concept of access to drinking water as a human right.
Yeah, so as you know, Pushparaj sir already mentioned that it's a basic human right and not just simply a necessity. But to put it in proper words, it is a fundamental human right as well. Matlab, you and me, we get the access to safe and clean drinking water as a human. It's a fundamental right, and it's being recognized by the United Nations in 2010, I guess. So every individual getting that, sufficient is also the word that I'll use, sufficient, safe, acceptable, physically accessible and affordable water for personal and domestic use is a fundamental, basic human right. And despite this, over 2 billion people still struggle with getting the access to it. So the challenge is not just about scarcity, but also about inequality. So I come from the capital state, which is Delhi. So a lot of the times where some areas in Delhi face particular water issues, I might be the privileged one getting some of it in my home, in my pipe, in my taps. But there are people still struggling, fighting over the water tanks, water tankers. So there's inequality in distribution as well in different areas of the capital city itself. Now imagine the situation in other states as well, right? So, poor infrastructure is one, as Gautam also mentioned. Pollution is there, and the problem is being faced by mainly the marginalized communities of a society, especially in the developing regions, and they often bear the brunt of this, the shortage and crisis. Now, ensuring this right means we have to go beyond the policies. Policies can be created, but action has to be taken, and real action. So government can make the policies, but ultimately action maker, society, you, me, innovator, scientists, all of us have to come together, work together to invest and work on real, innovative, sustainable water solutions. And that can not just improve like with technology, but it also requires side by side, proper governance, proper, quality checks, proper water access to make sure there's proper water access, and it's not just for the privileged ones. So only then, we can actually say and not just simply declare it and get away with it that it's a basic human right. We have to actually work towards it so that it actually becomes that fundamental human right.
Wonderfully said. So we have to work together for it. So now my next question goes to Mr. Gautam Surana. How can water pathogens which cause severe diseases and even death in certain cases controlled?
Well, again, this is related to technology and contamination and filtration systems. What we've been talking about. So, first thing is how do we contaminate less? You know, and then if we contaminate less, we need to recycle less. Again, the circular concept comes into the picture. So, what I feel is that it's a decentralized model which is required at one point of time, and see, water monitoring is something which is very, very important. Water, in a Delhi or a Bangalore kind of a city as well, you will have some areas where the quality is good, some areas where the quality is not good. So one solution cannot work for everything, first thing. And if you go to some rural parts, let's say 100 kilometers from Bangalore or 100 kilometers from Delhi, the challenge is very, very different. Okay,
Yes.
so there is no cut copy paste model which will work here. Okay, so basically the Jal Ministry needs to get more powerful, and down the line you need to have more decision making at every level, where they take decisions based on the requirement what is needed there. Okay, and technology is available. We are able to recycle STP water, we are able to recycle sewage water, we are able to desalinate. So immense amount of technology and companies available. In fact, many of these innovations do not even see the light of commercialization, because there is not many adopters of it, or government is not giving or buying enough. So, in fact, if government is not doing, I always say that government has its own problem, its own priorities, and we are a large nation, 140 crore people. Again, we have different states, different districts, villages. We have too many people. We have too many people. So what needs to be done is that a panchayat needs to have its own solution, and they need to think, how can we contribute. One thing which I see why we are not able to implement solution is that because we are not used to paying for water. Okay, and since we are not used to paying for water, we want everything to be free. Water should come free at home. And if somebody tells you, okay, you have to pay for water, you have to filter the water too, you have to pay something, and that's where the compromise happen. Okay, why should I pay for water? It should come as free, it's my right. Actually, it is not. That attitude has to change for the water, and only then the conservation will start. uh, and once the conservation starts, your quality will automatically improve. you will have more water. And once you have more water, your resources are more, so you have to recycle more. One more thing which I ideally think, this is from my personal experiences. My forefathers lived in Rajasthan and we migrated to Assam, and it was only because of water. It was only because of water, where there was no water in Rajasthan, and the people were migrating to rest of the world, to work, to live. It's a situation is different now in Rajasthan, but at that point of time, 100 years back, this was the one reason why they migrated. And and the Pusteni house, what we have, or the ghar, there is a 40,000 liter of water tank storage below the house, which keeps the house cool. At the same time, the 25 to 30 days of rain we get in the year, from the terrace, all the water is poured into that tank. And throughout the year, we drink that water, filter that water, drink that water, maintain that water properly. Such a decentralized model. Okay, I'm not dependent on government. The government was not developed country or underdeveloped country or developing nation. I'm talking about 70, 80 years back. Okay, and we were maintaining ourselves. We never had a pipeline from outside, and the family was self-sufficient. So let's look at these kind of models, to implement. And these practices is something which should be followed, because you need to take charge of your water. First thing, not everybody will not do. If your health, it's like this. If somebody else cooked for you, how healthy it would be? It won't be that healthy. You need to take charge of it. So I feel, the free water concept, because it has been politicized, it's a vote bank economy. Okay, so these are few things. And to add to Pushparaj sir's, further points where we can conserve, I feel 70% of the water what country needs goes to agriculture needs. 70% of the water. Okay, rest 30%, in that 25% is for industrial needs at this moment. And our consumption is growing, no doubt. So this need will grow substantially. At the same time, 5% is what is domestic need. Just 5%. What we take bath, drink, cook, all that washing is just 5%. And we are crying for 5%. We are not talking about 70%. We are not talking about 25%. What happens there when the scarcity comes? What happens there? You will not get food. The inflation will happen. There are socio-economic problems which will result because of water scarcity. And I was looking at some statistics. Because I work in packaging industry also for agriculture produce and food. Whatever we produce, with that 70% of water, majority of it goes waste. Doesn't even ends up in the stomach. 40 to 50% of our wet produce is going waste. Grains are going waste. So which means that we are using fertilizers, we are using toxic, all those chemicals. We are farming with a lot of effort, and so this is a lot of things. I feel water in true sense is wasted when we waste a product. Okay, what we are wasting at home is that 5%. Maybe we can save maybe 50% there. In the total 100%, we will be probably able to reduce 2%. But if we really want to conserve water and make India a water surplus country, or water, a normal country like any other where we have enough water, I would say it is the food wastage what we have to stop. That's where the maximum water wastage is happening.
True. So, when it comes to water, a lot of study has to be done. A proper management system has to be developed, and it has to be seen how much consumption is there sector-wise. And very rightly said, if people measure the how much water they are spending, and along with that, if they pay for water, then they will be more responsible for water. So that is also one area that can be looked into, and very good insights. I think these things can be looked into. So my next question goes to Mr. Pushparaj Dalal. Enlighten us on the latest water purification and treatment methods which are cost effective and can be made available to the common man.
Water treatment methods you talk about.
Yes, yes, yes.
So water treatment depends on the kind of contamination. So not everywhere it's a standard contamination. Somewhere you will find arsenic, somewhere you find fluoride. So it is customized as per what the contamination is, and then the technology is applied. But cost efficient technologies, I see at the individual levels we use RO. RO is something which not only takes away the bad part but also the good part. RO just neutralizes water. It takes away the minerals as well. So, in terms of best would be that like in the Europe or in the US, we don't need treatment of water from the tap. Whatever we get is drinkable water, and they drink it. So, if at the source of supply, we do treatment, then we won't need individual level technologies to deal with this. And technology is again expensive. It is cost effective technologies don't exist. Technologies are usually expensive when you go for it. If you want mineralization of your water, that will be more expensive than even the RO. So RO is a very standard thing that we use in our homes. But I think this is something which should happen at the source level, from where the water is being supplied. The water is treated right there and then, and what goes in the pipe is treated water, safe drinking water. So that is something which should solve the problem.
Perfect, sir. So now we move on to the next question, that is to Madam Shikita Gupta. How important is water and what role it plays in reducing the global disease burden?
So, I mean, how important is water? I think we have been discussing about that only.
Yes.
But water being the foundation of life, when I say foundation of life, it's not just simply for survival, but a lot of our healthcare system, even, and our well-being depends on it. So, safe and clean water is critical in reducing the global disease burden, because contaminated water is the leading cause of illnesses and mortality worldwide. Even if you take an example of a hurricane or an natural disaster like that, what often comes after that is waterborne illnesses. So not many people will die in that natural disaster itself, but access and close proximity to contaminated water is often the cause of a lot of people dying or falling sick. And today, nearly 80% of diseases worldwide are caused by contaminated water, sanitation, and there are many waterborne illnesses. And if water is not the direct cause of causing that illness, often at times it becomes a breeding ground for a lot of those vectors which ultimately make you fall sick. So there's this particular time in Delhi where all of us are, hearing cases of dengue, chikungunya, and where does it come from? Again, it's a vector borne disease. So that is there. So ensuring the universal access to clean water, to ensure there's proper sanitation, actually is very significant in reducing global disease burden, reducing hospitalization, and would also sort of being a part of the circular economy. If you take that circle in, it would also improve the public healthcare system and enhance economic productivity. So that is there. And how we can do that, I, coming from an investment and a startup background person, I would say look for innovative solutions, invest in sustainable water solutions. Whoever can invest, whether it be government, private sector investors, those who can, because it's not just simply about conservation, it's also about building a healthier ecosystem for everyone, healthier and resilient.
True. In fact, we can look for many public-private partnerships in this area, because on
Yes.
one end we have the startups who are rich with ideas, and on the other hand we do have a government who is rich with resources. So if they come
Yes.
together, a lot of solutions can be thought of. Very rightly said. So now we move to Mr. The next question, that is to Mr. Gautam Surana, and I think this is something which would be very close to the work he is doing. So, what steps can be taken in conserving water?
Okay. Uh, so I'll stick to the domestic need here because it's a very large. If you want to conserve in different sectors, it's a very different, uh, expertise. I'll stick to domestic need or the commercial need of the water, what we see at home level or individual house level. I would say yes, the water can be reduced by using water efficient fixtures. Uh, you know, Pusparaj was saying that, a bath single 5 minutes shower could waste 70 to 80 liters. Can we reduce it to a 15 to 20 liters? Can we reduce it to 10 liters per minute? Uh, you know, so there are fixtures which are available where we could reduce the flow rates of the taps, flow rates of the shower heads, and we have retrofitted multiple houses, multiple apartments, and where we have seen consumption coming down by 20%, 30%. Again, we are talking about retrofit. Green buildings, for example, now these green buildings which are in practice, they adopt these fixtures from day one, and the water consumption there is very less. You have recycled water used in your flush tank from your STP, so you are not wasting any fresh water there. So straight away, 30% of water is being conserved. Okay, because flushing accounts to 35 to 40% of your water, fresh water needs. Okay, and then if you are able to have water efficient fixtures, which means that another 30-40% can be saved easily, not compromising on your aesthetics. So in a way, let's say, if we have a per capita water need of 130 or 150, which I have seen, that's the WHO standards. But I have seen in apartments, the per capita water consumption or per family water consumption is somewhere around 450 to 600 liters per individual unit. Okay, in a large size apartment, this 600 liters could be reduced to a level of 300, and it's a
Wonderful.
lot of savings, and this
Yes.
300 liters, what you saved, doesn't needs to be recycled, doesn't goes into lakes, rivers, does not pollute. So you don't need to pump this water to high flow, high rise buildings. So ultimately, you are saving a lot of money for yourself, for your community, and then you're creating wealth. You're saving the nation. Similarly, in offices, we have seen, majority of now big offices, they have STPs, uh, which is a mandate basically. In big apartments also, it's a mandate. And usage of recycled water for flushing is a mandate. And if it's a green building, they have green building fixtures or water efficient fixtures, I would call. Okay. And I see the water consumption reducing drastically there. So, which means that these are simple solutions. Their payback is very fast. I have seen, in some apartments, you're getting payback in 60 days, 70 days. Tell me a green product which gives you a payback in 30 days or 60 days. You buy an electric car, it gives you a payback in 7 years. Probably if you drive every day 100 or 50 kilometers, something odd. Okay. If you install a solar, it gives you a payback in maybe 5 years or 6 years down the line. And let's not talk about the carbon footprint generation and all other things. Okay. So we are not talking about some extravaganza technologies. These are simple practices, common sense, I would say. Whenever somebody asks me what is water efficiency, I say it's a common sense. Just common sense. In your house, when I was running a tap, my mom used to shout from the back, "Beta, full क्यों चला रहा है? धीरे कर, पानी गिर रहा है, flash हो रहा है." Then we reduce the flow. Okay, and then we still wash our hands. This common sense that water, you are reducing your flow, and then I'm still able to do my work. So
True.
these are something which is very easy to adopt.
Yes. So,
And
in fact,
good part is government don't need to come and do it. And you will
yes.
not allow everybody to come to your house, let me tell you. Okay.
Yeah.
We have some projects where, the apartment tells me, why don't you provide me a plumber who goes to every house and install these fixtures? I said, boss, I can't do it because, it's the privacy gets impacted. Okay. The people don't allow me to enter their houses and fix these fixtures. Okay. It's a DIY kind of a solution, and probably whom they know or whom they are familiar with, they will listen to them. They will not listen to a stranger. If I knock a door and I say I want to fix your water saving fixtures, I want to come to your bathroom and I want to come to your kitchen and all that, they will not let me in. Let me tell you.
So, in fact, green buildings are a norm, and these practices should become more common. As you mentioned, it's mandatory in office buildings. So, these kind of steps should be taken. And when they are giving, yes,
I want to
you're
add to
trying to
this
say
point
something.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
I have seen some apartments in Mumbai which has 600 flats, and I asked them how much you pay for the water. They say it's a straight pipeline. We don't pay anything. There's a fixed money what we pay. And I asked them how much do you pay for a month, and they told me what 14,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees, somewhere 5,000 rupees for 600 apartments, 600 flats. What are you paying?
Okay.
You're not paying anything. Then why will somebody conserve water? Okay, why will
Yes,
you think about it? Okay,
yes.
so I think that's the biggest fundamental mistake what we are doing. Giving water for free. You start charging it, and you see the difference. You will see every home, every household conserving this water. It is in the
True.
bigger interest.
Yeah. So those were really good insights. Now I move on to the next question, that is to Mr. Pushparaj Dalal. How does water play a diverse role in conserving the ecosystem?
See, the entire ecosystem is connected. So, all five elements have to work in synergy to create an ecosystem. And ecosystem, water is source of life. I mean, what do you mean by an ecosystem? Is basically the entire system which ensures the well-being of humans and other species on the planet Earth. That is our ecosystem. And water is, if not the first, the second most important ingredient in that. So, water is required for almost everything in our life. What I said, like the food we grow, we need water. First, we need water to drink water. 70% of our body is water. The food we eat is water. The clothes we wear are made with the use of water. So the construction of buildings happens with the use of water. So the entire ecosystem is dependent on water. So precisely, I would want to, if you could reiterate, what exactly is your question? I mean, water is important. That's commonsensical. Water
Yes.
is important for everything in our surroundings. So, what exactly do you want me to talk about? If you could just reiterate that.
Yeah, basically, what role water plays in conserving the ecosystem. So, it is important, true, and also, if we are able to look at the role that water plays in our ecosystem in a more a detailed way, then in that case, we can also think of solutions where we are going wrong and where we are actually straining the ecosystem as well. So it would be nice if you can throw light on that.
See, lately, this whole debate, whole discussion about environmental social governance is coming to play, and it is the whole environment. that needs course correction now, or we are headed towards a doom. And water is one of the most important things in that ecosystem. So, conserving water, using water in a way that it fulfills our needs of today without impacting the needs of the future generations is what we need to do. That is the kind of outlook we need to adopt, whether it's towards environment, whether it's towards water. Water is part of environment, part of the ecosystem. I would rather, kind of what Gautam was saying about making water chargeable. So we have to kind of be in sync with the reality of our nation where we live and what we're talking about if India is the context. So the government is trying to provide free food grains to 80 crore people. And we are talking about charging water, which is a huge impossibility, at least in the next few decades. I totally agree with the philosophy. I know that the moment you make it chargeable, it becomes valuable. And we only value things which cost us. So it's not only about water, anything the government has ever distributed free or we get free, we don't value it. So conceptually it is correct, but it is not happening. Where the entire governance is running into providing free and creating beneficiaries just to kind of reap political gains. And so making water chargeable is nearly an impossibility, at least for the next 1 or 2 decades. Till we enter a era where we are into water shortage. For the affluent people, for people who buy Bisleri bottles of 20 rupees, it's always been chargeable. It's been chargeable for a lot of, for a long time. But that doesn't stop because they are affluent, they can afford, it doesn't matter. Whether it's chargeable or not, it doesn't matter to them. They would still waste it. So, a whole consciousness is required towards water and environment. And the only way to do is to get into the idea of a circular economy where the first priority is not recycling, how it has come up actually. Whenever we talk about circular economy, people start talking recycling, which is actually the worst option out of the three, which is actually the most difficult option out of the three, most costly option out of the three. The biggest option is reduce use. Whether it's, as he said, Gautam said, 70% is being utilized in agriculture, or 20% is being utilized in industries. That is where huge regulations and technologies both can play a vital role in conserving water, and not only conserving water, conserving the whole ecosystem. Because again, the ecosystem does not, water does not exist in isolation. It's part of an ecosystem. It's one of the 5 key elements of an ecosystem. So, what agricultural practices can be developed which work towards a reduced use? Drip irrigation is just a very simplistic way of saying it, but I'm sure that moving from paddy cultivation to other cropping, alternate cropping. Paddy, we are already in surplus, so why are we producing more and more paddy? Just because. So all these things are linked to the market and sustainability of farmers. So a basic consciousness is required about conservation and preservation of the environment in which we live, and we have to kind of become conscious that nobody else is going to come and solve these problems. It's us and our behaviors that need to get modified. The whole idea of consumerism is to sell more and more, produce more and more. Whereas reduced use is totally contradictory to that, which says that you reduce use and you reuse. Again, the entire marketing effort of the consumer industry is towards uh, being able to sell more. Whereas we require a complete turnaround on that, where we consume less and we reuse more and more. So the whole idea of reuse has gone out of existence now. So whether it's plastic, whether it's waste in any form, whether it's water, whether it's air quality, everything is getting impacted because of consumerism. And if we continue with this speed, then there is no individual behavior which will sort it. Because at one end we are talking about preserving water, but at another end we want to own a wardrobe which is huge and the multiple things in it without realizing the investment of resources in creating it. So I think it's very contradictory that we people are who are talking about conservation and preservation and you know circular economies are one of the biggest users of consumer products. I don't see any company which is kind of coming down its sales. They're just going up every year. And the more the sales, more industrialization, more production of goods, more use of natural resources. So it's a very vicious cycle. It's uh, Gyan is easier to give than to practice. So my core idea is that people have to be made aware of where they are headed, and mm, they need to understand the risk. They need to perceive the risk of the future generations. That what are we leaving our children with and their children with, and would they be sustainable? So sustainable, if we have to become sustainable, the sustainability for a business again is being redefined through the ESG approach. That it's not only about financial sustainability. You have to be responsible towards the environment as well. You have to be responsible towards societal needs as well. So I think that is something that we need to kind of adopt at an individual level, at an institutional level. The government can come in and bring in regulations and promote technologies to reduce use of not only water but all resources that are being overutilized. The
Yes.
problem is, which I said in the very beginning, that water is consistent. The consistency, I'm saying constant. The amount of water on the planet is constant, but still there's a shortage. The shortage is happening because of our over usage of things, because we are overusing water. So if that philosophy goes down somewhere individually into each of us, I think we'll move towards solutions.
Very true, sir. Very rightly pointed out that whenever we talk of circular economy, we talk of recycling, but we never think of reuse, and we never think of reduce. So these are the two things which need to be looked into, and also we have to understand that how we are contaminating water, and that is creating a lot of problems. So in that case, the way we use water should be mapped, and proper solutions should be thought of and should be worked on. And yes, so, having water as free resource again, it should be it's kind of it is a right that because 80% of our body is made out 70% of our body is actually water, so we need water, so that has to be understood. And along with that, we have to also see the practicalities and how we can have sectors to pay for water that they are using as a resource, because water is an input. So we pay for all the inputs that we have in any industrial product, so one has to pay for the water that they are using as well. So like if a Coca-Cola company is is making soft drinks, it cannot have water for free by just taking the groundwater. So that is a resource
Tell you
which
what,
we have to
I,
be.
I so I work with people who are bottling for Coca-Cola here, RJ Corp bottles for Coke and Pepsi both in India. We are working on water with them. So they are not getting it free. Industries are
Okay.
not getting, and they don't have unlimited access to water. So
Okay.
industrial industry wise there is a regulation, but it is being not followed. That's true. That
Okay.
it's But regulation is there, and we have to stop, making America our role model or the Western world our role model, where the philosophy is use and throw. If we just look back into our traditions, we always
Yes.
had things where we were not into use and throw. Again, I'm referring to a marketing effort here, because marketing comes from there, and we've become victims of marketing. In the morning there was an ad on the radio where the RJs were kind of pointing out that what are the things that you retain when
Okay.
something is delivered to your home. They are delivered in packages. So there were people on these calls who were talking about, I retain the box in which a cake comes, I retain the wooden spoons that come with this, I retain the polythene bags, and they were being mocked as being middle class. So, being middle class, following a middle class mentality, I think that is actually the need of the hour. That the way earlier we had in our homes, we had jars which were kept. We were not into use and throw. Use and throw is a very American concept where and if you will go and check the facts, you will find out that the biggest exploiter of resources in terms of environmental resources is the US, with a mere population of 30 crores, which is maybe 1/5 of our population. So they are at least 7 or 8 times higher use of resources in the US. So we are following the wrong role models here. We need to go back to some very basic things if we want to preserve nature, if we want to preserve the environment, if we want to preserve our resources. So I think the middle class soch is better than this extravagant thought of use, eat a bit and throw, as he was talking about food waste. So this this is something which is very Western, and the Western world is kind of responsible for kind of initiating this behavior. Now they are taking a lead in correcting the environmental needs, but still they're not modifying their behaviors. They're just bringing in regulations for the industry. At the individual level, it's still the same story there. So I think it's going back to the basics, and being aware of recycling is an expensive option. If you ever go into recycling and the technical part of recycling, it's usually more expensive than normal production, first rate
Yes.
production. So recycling is more of a FAF concept. Reduce and reuse are the real concepts in the circular economy.
Yes, simple living and high thinking. That is what
Yeah.
we should practice. And
If we
also,
don't, if we don't, then we are headed for it. I mean, it's not very far. Maybe we'll not see it, but our future generations will see it.
yes.
Yeah.
And it was in fact a beautiful session where we touched upon various crucial aspects of water, how important water conservation is, what are the latest technologies in the area of water conservation, and what we can really look into and how we can work towards it. So it was really great. And before I close this session, I would like to invite Raja sir if he has any thought that he would like to add to it.
I think everything is pretty much covered. The only aspect which I will sort of share some experiences of mine with Mr. Dalal is true. Only when it becomes a dire necessity of either scarcity or death will people pay for water. I mean, we had done a plant for arsenic remediation, and there was the only place I saw where people were willing to pay even as much as a 10 liter, 1 liter Bisleri bottle. That time it was 10 rupees, and guys didn't mind paying 6 because they were losing man-day earnings. There were deaths that were happening. So that was the only time I really saw. And to take from Rajasthan state, I think Tata Capital or Tata Foundation had done a lot of rainwater harvesting by digging ponds. So there the farmers who saw the financial benefit coming were willing to even forego part of their land. So I mean, these are the two things which are there. Either the fear of death and scarcity of water eventually leads to that. But it has been a great learning lesson for me and a learning time with the presence of all of you. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here, and also the inputs that you have given, and especially your valuable time. It was really a great session, and we are really thankful for and honored by your presence, and really thankful to you all. So, with this, I bring close the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Wonderful joining.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.